Well, earlier I spoke to the Conservative MP, Sir Desmond Swayne, and I started by asking him whether we should cancel Christmas to save the NHS.
No. Parliament specifically voted for the arrangements that are now in place. If they are to be changed, they must be changed by Parliament, not by two medical journals who have form. The reality is that if the government wants to persuade us to behave in a particular way, it can make its case. But as a Conservative, I fundamentally believe that individuals make better decisions on behalf of themselves, their families, and their communities than governments or medical journals can do on their behalf.
But at the beginning of this crisis, most of us were quite happy to stay at home in order to protect the NHS. And indeed, we did protect the NHS. Now that the infection rates are rocketing again, shouldn't we consider doing the same thing? Christmas or no Christmas?
Well, I wasn't one of those who was happy to stay at home. I believe the wrong path was taken then, and I believe that if the last few weeks prove anything, it's that lockdowns are not working.
Well, should it go back before Parliament then?
It should, indeed. Now, undoubtedly, ministers actually have the power under the 1984 Public Health Act to simply outlaw Christmas in the way that Cromwell tried to in the 1850s. As authoritarian a government we have now. But the reality is that these arrangements were made in a vote by Parliament. And I think it would be outrageous if the government were to use the powers that it has under the 84 Act and change them unilaterally.
And if the rules were changed now for Christmas at this very late stage indeed, do you think that people would comply?
I think undoubtedly a number of people would comply and a number of people would not, as is the case now. I certainly detect a growing frustration and anger about being told how we must behave and what we must do. People don't like it by and large.
And what would you do? Would you comply or would you break the rules? You personally?
Comrade, I always obey the rules in order not to be pointed out by people like yourself.
Tell me, do you think that your government is losing credibility in all this?
Well, according to the opinion polls, no. But certainly credibility in my mind as a Conservative government. As I say, I'm a Conservative. I believe in individual choice. And I am at the end of my tether and patience with a government elected on a Conservative manifesto telling us how to behave.
But why not just wait a few more months? I mean, what's the big deal with Christmas? You know, have Christmas in April or in August when we finally got the vaccine into the vast majority of people in this country. You can wait a couple of months for a turkey, can't you?
Well, the reality is that there's no promise of April or May. The reality is these things keep receding. We're being told now that we may have to carry on masks for the rest of the year. And indeed, there may be some restrictions that will need to be permanent. This health and scientific lobby has to be put in its place. They cannot go on telling us how we must live our lives forever.
But they're doing that to protect our lives.
That is a matter of opinion. The reality is there's also mental health and there's ordinary human engagement.
So do you think that this country at the moment is actually being run by the scientists? Are they the real power in the land?
A particular group of scientists have far too much influence, in my opinion. The fact is that what we are doing in terms of attempting to control the virus has disastrous economic consequences. And those have to be taken into account. Stopping human contact comes at too high a price. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sir Desmond Swayne.